In the late 1970s, China was a predominantly rural nation. The vast majority of its population lived in the countryside, where life was often harsh and unforgiving. The people toiled on communal farms, working long hours with little to show for their efforts. The communal farming system, while ideologically driven, was inefficient and stifled individual initiative. Poverty was widespread, and hunger was a constant threat. Many families struggled to meet their basic needs, and malnutrition was a common issue among children. Then, in 1978, Deng Xiaoping initiated a series of reforms that would transform China's economy and lift hundreds of millions out of poverty. These reforms marked the beginning of a new era for China. The reforms began in the agricultural sector, which was the backbone of the rural economy. Recognizing the need for change, the government took bold steps to overhaul the existing system. The government dismantled the inefficient commune system and introduced the household responsibility system. This new system allowed farmers to lease plots of land for long-term use.
Under this system, farmers were given long-term leases on plots of land. They were no longer just workers on communal farms, but became managers of their own plots. They were allowed to keep what they produced after meeting state quotas. This meant that any surplus they generated could be sold on the open market. This seemingly simple change had a profound impact. Farmers were now motivated to work harder and produce more, knowing that their efforts would directly benefit their families. With the incentive to increase productivity, farmers began to adopt better farming techniques and invest in more efficient tools and equipment. They could sell their surplus crops on the open market and keep the profits. This newfound economic freedom spurred innovation and entrepreneurship in the countryside. As a result, agricultural productivity soared, and rural incomes began to rise. The increased income allowed families to improve their living standards and invest in their children's education.
The success of these agricultural reforms laid the foundation for China's economic miracle. The countryside, once a symbol of poverty and struggle, began to thrive. With more food security and rising incomes in the countryside, the rural population experienced a significant improvement in their quality of life. With more food security and rising incomes in the countryside, China could now turn its attention to other sectors of the economy. The agricultural reforms created a ripple effect that would benefit the entire nation. China could now turn its attention to other sectors of the economy. The increased agricultural productivity provided a stable foundation for further economic development. The stage was set for the next phase of development: urbanization and industrialization. The success in the countryside paved the way for rapid growth in cities, transforming China into a global economic powerhouse. The introduction of the household responsibility system was nothing short of revolutionary. It marked a pivotal shift in China's agricultural policy, transforming the lives of millions of farmers across the nation. For the first time in decades, Chinese farmers had a direct stake in the land they worked. This was a monumental change from the previous collective farming system, where individual effort was often diluted by the collective's needs. The sense of ownership instilled a new work ethic and a desire to maximize yields. Farmers began to see their land not just as a place of labor, but as a source of pride and potential prosperity.
Farmers were no longer working for the collective. They were working for themselves and their families. This personal investment in their land and labor created a powerful incentive to improve and innovate. This newfound autonomy led to a surge in agricultural output. Fields that were once underutilized or neglected began to flourish as farmers applied their knowledge and skills to maximize productivity. Farmers began experimenting with new crops and techniques. They diversified their plantings, trying out different varieties that could yield better results or fetch higher prices in the market. They invested their earnings back into their farms, purchasing better tools and fertilizers. This reinvestment cycle spurred further improvements in productivity and efficiency. The result was a dramatic increase in productivity, leading to food surpluses and higher incomes. Farmers who once struggled to feed their families now had enough to sell in the market, generating additional income.
The impact on poverty reduction was significant. Rural areas that had been mired in poverty for generations began to see real economic progress. Millions of rural families were lifted out of poverty as their incomes rose. This newfound financial stability allowed them to invest in better living conditions, education, and healthcare. This newfound prosperity also had a ripple effect throughout the economy. As farmers earned more, they spent more, boosting local businesses and creating jobs. As rural incomes increased, so did demand for goods and services, stimulating growth in other sectors. This economic dynamism helped to bridge the gap between rural and urban areas. The success of the household responsibility system demonstrated the power of incentives and the importance of private property rights. It showed that when people have a stake in their own success, they are more likely to work hard and innovate. It showed that when people have a stake in their own success, they are more likely to work hard and innovate. This principle became a cornerstone of China's broader economic reforms. This lesson would prove invaluable as China embarked on its journey towards becoming an economic powerhouse. The principles of ownership and personal investment that began in the fields of rural China would eventually permeate the entire economy, driving growth and development on an unprecedented scale. As agricultural reforms took root and rural incomes grew, a massive migration from the countryside to the cities began. This shift was not just a trickle, but a flood, as millions of rural inhabitants sought to improve their living standards. The allure of urban life, with its promise of modern amenities and a higher quality of life, was irresistible to many. Millions of people were drawn to urban centers by the promise of better jobs, education, and opportunities. The cities offered a stark contrast to the rural areas, with their bustling streets, towering skyscrapers, and vibrant economic activities. For many, the move represented a chance to break free from the limitations of rural life and to embrace the possibilities of the future.
China's cities exploded in size, becoming sprawling megacities almost overnight. The rapid pace of urbanization was unprecedented, with new buildings and infrastructure springing up seemingly out of nowhere. This transformation was not just about physical growth, but also about the cultural and social changes that came with it. This rapid urbanization presented both challenges and opportunities. On one hand, the influx of people strained existing resources and infrastructure, leading to overcrowding and pollution. On the other hand, it created a dynamic environment ripe for innovation and economic growth. The government faced the daunting task of providing housing, infrastructure, and services for this influx of new residents. Massive housing projects were launched to accommodate the growing population, and urban planning became a critical focus. The challenge was to create livable cities that could sustain long-term growth. At the same time, this migration provided a vast pool of labor that would fuel China's industrial expansion. Factories and industrial zones sprang up, employing millions and driving the country's economic engine. The availability of a large, relatively low-cost workforce was a key factor in China's rise as a global manufacturing powerhouse.
To accommodate this growth, China embarked on an unprecedented infrastructure development program. The scale and speed of construction were staggering, with new projects being completed in record time. This development was not just about building for the present, but also about laying the groundwork for future growth. New highways, railways, airports, and seaports were constructed at a breakneck pace. These projects were essential for connecting the vast country and ensuring the smooth flow of goods and people. The modern transportation network that emerged was a testament to China's commitment to progress and development. These infrastructure projects not only connected cities to each other, but also linked rural areas to urban markets, facilitating the flow of goods, services, and people. This connectivity was crucial for integrating the national economy and ensuring that the benefits of growth were widely shared. The growth of cities and the expansion of infrastructure went hand in hand. As cities grew, the demand for better infrastructure increased, and as infrastructure improved, it spurred further urban growth. This virtuous cycle was a key driver of China's rapid development. Cities provided the markets and the workforce, while infrastructure connected these centers of economic activity. The synergy between urbanization and infrastructure development created a powerful engine for economic growth, transforming China into a global economic powerhouse. This symbiotic relationship was a key driver of China's economic growth and its remarkable success in reducing poverty. The transformation of China's urban landscape is a testament to the country's ability to adapt and innovate, creating a brighter future for its people. Recognizing that efficient transportation networks were essential for economic growth, China invested heavily in infrastructure development. New highways crisscrossed the country, connecting remote villages to bustling cities. High-speed rail lines shortened travel times, facilitating trade and tourism. Modern airports and seaports were built to handle the increasing volume of goods flowing in and out of the country. This infrastructure boom had a transformative impact on China's economy. Transportation costs plummeted, making it cheaper to move goods and people. Businesses could access wider markets, while consumers benefited from lower prices. The improved connectivity also attracted foreign investment, as companies sought to capitalize on China's growing economy. Moreover, infrastructure development created millions of jobs, providing employment opportunities for both rural migrants and urban residents. The construction of roads, railways, and other infrastructure projects required a massive workforce, boosting incomes and stimulating local economies. China's investment in infrastructure was not merely about building physical structures, it was about connecting people, markets, and opportunities. This focus on connectivity laid the foundation for sustained economic growth and played a crucial role in lifting millions out of poverty.